welcome back to my channel. I make budgeting and cash stuffing videos, and if that's content you are interested in, do consider subscribing. Today's video will be a budget closeout for the month of April, and April was one of the most expensive months for me this year. I budgeted the month with 64,650, 63,080 rupees being the income, and 1570 is the rollover that I had from the month of March. 63,080 is not my actual income for the month, because from my private practice and also from the income that I have from the rooms that I rent out, I do not budget the whole amount for my monthly expenses, because I set aside 25% of the income that I get from there into their own respective emergency funds. I have a rent emergency fund and also a business emergency fund, which is for my private practice. So I don't budget the whole income that I get from these two categories. Coming to my fixed expenses, usually some of these categories in my fixed expenses remains the same every month, and there are some few expenses like my tuition fees. Not my tuition fees actually, there was a tuition fees for one of my sisters, and pick up and drop, and this thyroid profile test. All these things are some things that have come up in the month of April, and I had to budget for them. And I put them in the fixed expenses category because I knew how much they were going to cost, and that was the amount that I budgeted for. LIC, I budgeted 2460, and I always do set aside 2460 each month for my LIC. A siblings fund, I always put away 1000. SIP also is 1000 per month. EMI also is 13,615. So basically in my fixed expenses category, whatever I budgeted for was the amount that I actually paid for. So this doesn't change. Subscription, I set aside 900 and I spent 900. Ration was also 3500. My RD is 6000 per month. Tuition fees, I paid 2500, no change here. Pick up and drop also I paid 1000, and thyroid profile test was also 800 rupees. So there's no change here. The total expenditure that I had for my fixed expenses in April was 37,275 rupees. Coming to my variable expenses, I budgeted 6,000 rupees for food and groceries for the whole month. Now, if you're somebody who watches my videos, you know that I budget twice every month. I budget for the first 15 days and then I budget for the next 15 days. So in the first 15 days of the month, in the first April budget, I budgeted 2,000 rupees for food and groceries, but that was not enough for me. So in the second budget, I set aside 4,000 rupees. And so I budgeted a total of 6,000 rupees for the month of April. But the actual expenses that I had in food and groceries was 5974 rupees, which means that I have a balance of 26 rupees. For petrol, I always set aside 3,500 each month, and in the month of April, I spent 2,800 only. So I had a remaining balance of 700 rupees. For my expenses category, that is for everything else which has not been budgeted here, like personal care, wardrobe, eating out, gifting, medical, pets, everything, for car maintenance and everything. I will soon start a sinking fund for car maintenance, for medical, for vets, that I have to do soon, because I don't want to keep dipping into my savings when my expenses category runs out in the middle of the month. So I had budgeted 10,300 rupees, but the actual expenditure that I did in my expenses category in the month of April was 23,673 rupees. And I am not proud of it. That is why I feel like doing a budget closeout is very important, because I can look back and see where I had overspent. But then again, to be very honest, 23,673, it came to this number because there was an expense that I knew was going to happen, but I didn't actually prepare for it. I didn't budget for it. I had to bear that expenses from my business emergency fund. Yes, I took out money from my business emergency fund to fund for that expenditure, because I'm working on a financial goal of putting aside 50,000 rupees into my savings. That is my personal emergency fund, and I didn't feel like taking out money from my personal emergency fund. I felt like I am working on putting some money into it and I'm taking it out halfway. And so I took out money from my business emergency fund to fund for that expense. The expense that came up that I'm talking about was a traveling expense. I had to drop someone somewhere, and I spent around 12,000 rupees. And if I have to be very precise, it was around 11,740. So I budgeted 10,300 rupees and I spent 23,673 rupees. But 11,740 was the traveling expense, and I knew this expense was there. My mistake was me not budgeting for it because I didn't know how much it was going to cost and I didn't know how much to set aside, so I just let it be. I told myself that I'll take it out from my savings or from my business fund when the time comes. So if this expense was not there, say the traveling was not there, then 23,673 minus 11,740, the actual expense would have been 11,933, which means I had budgeted 10,300. So 11,933 minus 10,300, I would have been over budget by 163 rupees. But now that's not the case. So let's see how much the difference is. 23,673 minus 10,300. The difference is 13,373 rupees. So 13,373 rupees is the amount that I took out from my business emergency fund to fund for my monthly expenses in the month of April. Yes, I'll say monthly expenses even for my travel expense also, because I knew the expense was there. I should have budgeted for it. But then again, it's been done. So let's add this up and see. 5974 plus 2800 plus 23,673. So the amount that I spent in my variable expenses was 32,447. Into my savings and financial goals, right now I'm working on depositing 50,000 rupees into my savings, and I had budgeted 75 for putting into my financial goals, and I did deposit 75 into it. So this is my budget closeout for the month of April. My fixed expenses were the same. I budgeted this much and the expense was this much. My savings goals were the same. I budgeted 75 and I did put aside 75 into it. And into my variable expenses, I had budgeted 19,800 for the month, but I spent 32,447 for my food and groceries and my petrol. The difference that I have left, 726 rupees, I just put it into my investing category to buy stocks and everything. So that's all for today, and if you are still watching and you like the video, please do press the like button because that would help me out a lot. And I hope to see you soon in my next video. Until then, take care and bye-bye.